Stockton, who for the past 9 years has been working for the peak body New South Wales Family Services Association and its Social Enterprises Results Leadership Group Australia. Prior to joining New South Wales Family Services and Results Leadership, Beth worked as a social worker with children and families in various settings, including community services and homelessness in the United States, family and children early intervention in the UK, and with children who have a parent in prison across New South Wales. Beth holds a Bachelor of Communication and Masters in Social Work. Beth is inspired and driven towards achieving social justice and opportunity. She believes that we can achieve more and work smarter by measuring our impact, communicating the quality of effort and effect, using the data to drive ongoing quality improvement, and working in partnerships to achieve outcomes at a population level. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. That's really embarrassing. I didn't realize that was going to be read out. Sorry, just a little bit about me. Hi, my name is Beth Stockton. Thank you for coming here today. I'm from New South Wales Family Services, and this is my colleague Kath Mabbott from Mission Australia, Rana Far West. So I've been asked to come here today to share with you the work that we do with non-government and government organizations, small, medium, and large, helping them to measure outcomes across their programs. But it's about a lot more than just measuring outcomes. It's really about embedding a culture across an organization. And I was really inspired to see a lot of that from Darren's presentation today as well. So I've been over the last year working with the Brighter Futures lead agencies. So there's 16 lead agencies. And they decided together that they wanted to come up with some shared outcomes so that they could more meaningfully communicate and articulate to their funders and to external stakeholders the impact they were having on the children and family they serve. They just didn't feel like the current data collection was really capturing that. So they've worked really hard and really well together coming up with that. It's not easy across 16 lead agencies, really talking about what is the outcome you want to achieve? Why do you come to work? And what kind of change do you want to see for the children and families you serve? And so it was a really great and true collaboration. And so I've asked Kath to share with you today from Mission Australia's Brighter Futures program, from the perspective of their organization, what that process has been like for them. I always think it's great to have a bit of practice to go with the theory, so you don't think I'm just full of it. As you heard, I am a social worker by trade, and children and families has been my specialty. I've had the pleasure within the outcomes work I do to work with a bunch of different industries and areas, sectors, and so that's been really fun, but a bulk of my work is with children and families, and I am genuinely passionate about social justice. So my enthusiasm, which you will see, for outcomes measurement is certainly coming from a place of really the service delivery perspective on things. So we use results-based accountability. FAMS came into contact with RBA when, back in 2008, we were funded by FACTS to implement a 3-year pilot project. And so basically to implement RBA ourselves, and then also to fund, to support 10 of our member services to also implement the framework. And so we did this, and we loved it. The principles resonated with us. It had an impact on our organization beyond what we could have expected. It changed the way we thought, it changed the way we worked, and it opened so many doors for us as a small peak body that we never had imagined could be opened in terms of the impact we could have. And we also watched the 10 small, medium, and large family services, the impact it had on them. And similarly, they would say the same around the culture of their organization, the way they worked, the way they communicated with funders, and also their growth and development in terms of what they could achieve for their clients. So we really took to it. At the end of the 3 years, the funding ceased, but we stuck with it because we loved it, and then we've continued to promote it to our members, and then we've also continued to promote it across the sector and even beyond, government, non-government, and across Australia. So that's one of the doors that has opened, has been this work for us. So just a little bit about RBA. So you're probably aware there's a whole lot of frameworks out there, And the best advice I ever received was you could spend the next 10 years researching, just pick one and get started. Because really at the end of the day, it's demonstrating the outcomes we're achieving for our families and our communities, and it's also using that for ongoing quality improvement. So we want to just get started with it. RBA, as I mentioned, is the one FAMS came across, and it happened to just work really well for us. So it has two kinds of accountability, and it's the only framework that I know of that does. Most frameworks look at just performance accountability, but RBA looks at population accountability, which is your big picture aspirational outcomes. And I will touch on population accountability a bit more shortly, because I feel like we're really ready for this in Australia, and we're starting to do a lot of work around it. And then performance accountability is looking at the quality of your programs. So are we making the difference that we intend to make for the clients we serve? We've always counted how much are we doing, but really making sure we're looking at how are we doing this work well, and most importantly, is anyone better off? So has there been a change of circumstance for the children and families we work with? Has there been a change in behavior or attitudes for the better? Has skills and knowledge improved as a result of the work that we're doing? So we really want to make sure that we're having the impact, and then looking at how do we measure that. But I really agreed with Darren, so much resonated with me, and I loved seeing the data up on the wall, and I must say I'm not a data person, but what I love about it is the story behind the data, and it's what that data tells you. So it's not data in itself that's really important and valuable, it's what we do with the data that's really important. And so it concerns me that we often, firstly, it's really challenging because services are really bogged down by data, and so data has a bad name, and they're not necessarily capturing meaningful data for their internal quality improvement. And many organizations have multiple funders, so there's generally dozens of data points per funder, and so it can be really time intensive. So what this means is then they don't have the time to do any analysis around the data and look at that data and what does it mean. So the data gets captured and then it gets sent off to the funding body, and then the funding body is left to do the analysis on that data. And they don't have the story behind it. They probably have part of the story, absolutely, but they wouldn't have the whole story behind the data. And so what we really love about RBA, we recognize that funders also need to know that their programs they're funding are making a difference. So we've been trying to work with organizations to work out how we can use what they're currently collecting to just use it in a more meaningful way, or make it more meaningful to them as an organization. And then within the RBA framework, we're also big proponents of 3 to 5 headline measures. So you might be collecting more data than that, but picking 3 to 5, I love seeing up on Darren's board, there are only a few measures. And I noticed too that each school had different measures. And the reason for that was because they were each facing different issues. And that's also a really big challenge for funders, because funders would love to see across a program. We've been doing work with the Nepean Blue Mountains District around their early intervention and prevention program. Can we come up with shared measures? And we were working with 10 organizations. So can we work with 10 services to come up with shared measures that are meaningfully? And then if you think about the predicament of facts, which is trying to come up with shared measures across hundreds of organizations that's meaningful. So I really loved that autonomy within the schools, and I'm within at least the example Darren gave, and I keep trying to think about how can we give funders what they need that's meaningful for them, because funders are also reporting back that they're not getting from the data what they need to either. So how can we capture data that's meaningful at a funder level, but then also data that's meaningful at a program level? Because as I mentioned, it's not just about the data, it's what we do with the data. So it's using that data internally within your organization to look at what's the story behind it. So if you had a 30% drop in a particular area, what are the reasons behind that? Who are our partners that can help us to do different? Because chances are the reasons behind the data are internal, but also there's a whole lot of external factors that impact on the data within your program. And then we look at what works to do better. So how do we work with our partners to do better in this? So that's just a little bit about performance accountability, and Kath, as I mentioned, is going to share with you what they're doing there with their Brighter Futures program. But I want to move on to population accountability. So, has anybody heard of collective impact? A few people? Yeah, so collective impact is the term being thrown around, and it's about how do we work collectively across communities towards really big picture change. So looking at really high level aspirational goals. So population accountability is, why does your organization exist? Why do you do what you do? And that's really big picture stuff. Your organization can't be solely responsible for that stuff. So just in terms of child and family services and working with children and families across the child and family sector and communities, I just chose these 3 population level outcomes to give you an idea. So what we do is we work with organizations to identify their why. Why does your organization exist and why do you do what you do? So we want all children to be safe. We want all families to thrive. Not just the children in our programs, we want all children to be safe. We want all families to thrive, and we want our community to be socially connected. So that's what we're looking at when we're looking at outcomes. And I've completely agreed with Darren, so I don't want to, when I say this, I hope I'm not contradicting in any way, because he's absolutely right in the how, in terms of our organizations and how we do what we do, absolutely. So what I'm about to say, I'm not trying to contradict that at all. But this is connecting us with why we do what we do. And I remember, I watched a TED Talk several months ago, and his name is Simon Sinek, and he spoke about how great leaders inspire action, is what it was called. And he said that the successful organizations don't sell what they do, they don't sell how they do it, they sell why they do what they do. And that's what people who are buying or consuming are buying into. They're buying into the why. And we have a really inspirational why. So if we look at what we do and why we do it, it's really inspirational, and we can bring people on board. So I'll never forget, a few years ago, Michael McAfee presented at the FAMS conference, and he's from Promise Neighborhoods, which is a collective impact initiative in the United States, and it's a cradle to career initiative. So their goal, they want to eradicate poverty. And I never forget him saying, 16 million children in America are living in poverty. He said, that's why I do what I do, and that's why Promise Neighborhoods exists. So that's that connecting with the why. And so that's what population accountability is. And recognizing that no one organization can do it alone. Another really good example is Leeds City Council is doing this work. And so in the UK, the city councils are all graded all across the work they do. And they were failing in every area having to do with the well-being of children and young people. And so they said, this isn't good enough, we need to do something about it. And so they looked at who their partners were in the community who were also interested in a child-friendly Leeds. So that's what that became their why. We want to live in a child-friendly Leeds, where children and young people are supported and they're nurtured. And so they got a whole range of partners involved, and even shop owners would put up signs to say, good luck with your HSC, around HSC time. So recognizing that beyond the usual suspects, there's so many contributors to this work, if we can sell our why. And so the community gardens, they weren't asked to do this, but they created a floral bed. So the symbol for child-friendly Leeds, or the logo, became a thumbs-up symbol. And so in the middle of Leeds, they created a floral arrangement of a thumbs-up symbol. And that was the community gardens' way of saying, we've bought into this why, we want to help contribute to a child-friendly Leeds. So I just think this work is really exciting, and it's happening more and more across Australia, about how do we get all the different contributors together around these areas, or other areas and beyond. It's really hard to disagree with an outcome. I'm sure there might be people in the world that might disagree with these outcomes, but most people you would find, particularly all children being safe, you'd like to think, I know it's not happening, and so there's reasons for that, and so there would be people maybe not in agreement. Or maybe most people in agreement but don't know how to go about it. So it's really difficult to disagree with an outcome, but what we disagree on is strategy. So we disagree on the how. And the whole point is that by all having different strategies, we can have such a greater impact. So it's actually okay to disagree on strategy. And it's okay for each organization to go away and implement their own strategy. Mark Friedman gives a really good example of this in his book, Trying Hard is Not Good Enough, and it's across Oregon. They did a study on the teenage pregnancy rate in Oregon, and Tillamook County came up as having the highest teenage pregnancy rate in the state. And the community was quite shocked by that. They didn't realize, and they said, this isn't good enough, we need to do something about it. And so a whole range of partners got around the table, and I'm simplifying this here. But you had schools, health centers, and churches, and then you had moms and dads, and you had family services, youth centers, a whole range of partners around that table. And when they talked about what works to do better, the health centers wanted to hand out condoms, the churches wanted to promote abstinence, schools wanted to implement education programs in schools, and then you had a whole range of other strategies. You can imagine if they sat around that table until they agreed on a strategy. It wouldn't have happened. But the whole point is they each went away, and their organization, program performance level, they each went away at a program performance level and did their thing. And Tillamook County ended up with the lowest teenage pregnancy rate in the state. So it's about how collectively we can work so much greater. And it can be difficult because there are things like competitive tendering and things like that that can sometimes create rifts across the sector. But if we can remind ourselves of our outcome and recognize that we're actually all in this together and we're all in this to achieve the same thing, we can work a lot stronger. So thank you very much. I'd like to pass you now over to Kath, and she's going to share with you the work that Mission Australia is doing in the Brighter Futures program.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Hi, everyone. I'm Kath Mabet, Programs Manager at Mission Australia for the Irana and Far West. And I've been in that position for about 5 years. So really all I want to do today is have a look at the tool and how we use it and how it's fitted into our work and the types of benefits that we're getting from it as well, and that we hope those benefits will flow on to our clients and the communities. And it's really comforting, I think, and reassuring to hear all of the positive work that everyone seems to be doing in a very similar direction, and makes me feel quite good that we're heading in the right track, actually. So anyway, so Mission Australia have been involved from the very beginning with the project and as part of the Brighter Futures lead agency. That was where we identified a need to create a standard measure for the work that we do. And as Beth said, there's lots of other tools around, but you know, it was very important that we got together, we talked about what our issues were, and we identified one and we went with it. And we worked through what we saw, the type of work that we wanted to measure and the outcomes that we wanted to measure. So we found that whilst we all measure our service activity, there are significant variation in the type of data recorded and the interpretation of that data. And that was probably one of our biggest challenges. As a result, the Brighter Futures lead agency met on a number of occasions to nut out exactly what we wanted to measure and how we would define it. So whilst we're still in what I see as the draft model for our scorecard, we're well on our way to completing a very useful management tool. So how do we use such a tool, and why do we need such a tool? To be effective and accountable in our work, we need to be able to measure, or to be able to work out what our measurable impact is, not only with our families but in our communities and even within our staff and our support networks. This allows us to identify ways in which we can improve the service. The aim is to collate and analyse the data that is more comprehensive, which has the potential to represent our work in a more meaningful and accurate way. Our accuracy is achieved through a clearly defined set of measurables and using the same definitions across all services and communities. We allow for a more accurate set of data that we can compare region to region, service to service, and possibly even family outcomes and looking at what works and what's not working. The scorecard allows for less variation of the data, and the set definitions give us a true reference we can have the confidence and understanding that the story behind the data in our services and regions does vary considerably, but the scorecard gives us a tool to assist, to identify, and allows us to see where we're having the greatest impact and why. All right. So we'll have a look at some of the definitions. I've got a few papers here to shuffle, so bear with me. So the measurable outcomes and the definitions. So these are the ones we started with, and I'd say possibly as time goes on, we may find some others. So we looked at total number of referrals, of course, that's a pretty given one. Then we look at the total number of ROSH referrals, the percentage of ROSH referrals, the percentage of those who are referred that participating in the Brighter Futures program, so both ROSH and non-ROSH, percentage of those referred who have referred on to another service, so how effective are we being in supporting that client even if they don't fit our program. Percentage of those referred rather that who moved over to FACS, percentage of those referred who declined the service, percentage of those referred who could not be located, and percentage of positive change in family and child wellbeing, percentage that felt they had a strengthened attachment to their child, percentage of families who feel more connected to their community, and percentage of families who are achieving their case plan goals. So there's quite a lot of work and quite a lot of data that goes into those. For us, we basically adapted systems we already had in place and further enhanced those to be able to capture and work within the process we had without creating, a mountain of work for ourselves. So in effect, what we did was look at our database that we use and have collected data on. I don't know, when it Brighter Futures started with Mission, we started that. So, sorry, 2000. So it's a growing document, but that is something that we update each week. New referrals go on, the date they'll put into Docs Connect, the date they're referred, how many children they've got, what programs they're participating in, have we referred them somewhere else, childcare, a whole range of other things that we collate. So we're very good at collecting the data, but were we doing much more with it? We did case studies, good news stories, but again, getting right down to the bottom of what we do and how well we did it, we weren't probably going that far, or having the tool to be able to facilitate that as well. Other parts of the measurables, when we're looking at more of that family impact, rather than the database that couldn't necessarily give us the information, we actually did client surveys. And we do that on a quarterly basis because this data is actually generated each quarter, so we update it each quarter. And our staff talk to our clients on a quarterly basis and run through a very short 4-question survey that answers the impact of that. And then we collate that data as well. Okay, so I'll have a look at we will have a look at, sorry, I want to have a look at some of the measurables. Okay, so I'll have a look at a couple of the measurables. Oh God, sorry, that's my hair. The first one we'll have a look at is percentage of families who are achieving case goal plans. This is what the scorecard basically looks like. So on there you can see each quarter that's been entered, but in effect what had happened, the story behind the curve is showing percentage of families achieving case goal plans remain fairly constant actually. Factors contributing to the data included what we feel is low staff turnover, strong engagement techniques and valued partnerships in our communities. That's what we've identified so far. Our partners in most communities are fairly similar, but yes, they do vary. But include McKillop, AMS, SHS, FACS, Centrecare, Theomali, childcare centres and local schools, to name a few. So we identify that, we look at that and see what's working. Strong community partnerships we feel definitely work and support the referral transition, including FACS for Roche referrals and other local agencies for community referrals. Such partnerships allow for a warmer referral and engagement phase rather than a completely cold referral. And I think all of us in working in the family sphere have probably had the experience of a completely cold referral versus a warm referral, or having that support from another service to engage with that family. Strategic engagement techniques that may include softer programs to build relationships whilst case management is taking place with priority issues. So some of those sorts of things as well, coming in a bit softer, building that rapport, building the relationship, but also chipping away at the case management just under the surface. Another important factor we feel in achieving is doing what we say we're going to do and by when. Building trust and rapport with our clients, community and our partners. We regularly review the support plan with our clients on a monthly basis, and we do it with our clients so that they can validate the process as well. So in terms for an action plan, the story behind that curve, we continue to support and foster community relationships and partnerships. We look for more and possibly better ways in which we can support our caseworkers in their roles as their clients' needs intensify. For example, quality training. We aim to maintain and minimise staff turnover and look at better techniques to support staff located in outreach locations. This may include, again, more training, greater support through reflective practice techniques. So we see all of those sorts of things in supporting our staff that, of course, are helping our families achieving their case goal plans as well. Another one I wanted to look at is percentage of those referred that declined the service. Which that graph's not in there, is it? I'll just talk about that one. And basically looking at the graph, like it's gone up, and I think, oh God, all these clients are declining the service. But in actual fact, the story behind the curve is we're looking at, in that quarter, we had a massive increase in referrals, particularly Roche, in that later end of the quarter. So there was a lot of data struggle, I suppose you'd call, or just really compacted at the end of that quarter. The rise in the proportion number of Roche referrals versus community referrals also had an impact. Our partners, again, were very similar, again, including FACS, particularly with Roche referrals, and McKillop Centre Care, childcare centres, community health, AMS and schools as well, in looking at other ways in which we can get families to engage. What works, we're finding that the preferred method, again, is the warm referral. For example, with our Roche clients, we've tried a couple of different methods, actually, in working with FACS, and one was actually doing a joint home visit and meeting the family and talking about the referral initially. That actually came across, we found, in most cases, possibly more negative than positive, in that the family seemed to recognise us, and by, I think, the visual of seeing us with FACS, that they thought we were possibly FACS as well. So we looked at other ways. We've obviously tried just going in alone and not much other sort of information around that. That also probably wasn't that successful. But what we have found that worked probably the best so far is a warmer referral, and it's kind of in the middle. It's where the FACS referrers actually rang the family, told them about the referral, was quite clear about the referral, and that, Mission Australia or the Brighter Future Service would be coming to see them, and what the referral was actually about. And we've had communication with FACS around that. With each referral that we get now, we try to work in and work out when that phone call might happen, and then we can follow up our process pretty quickly after that as well. So we're finding that in most locations is working best so far. So again, just working in partnership with FACS and our other local services. That's about it. So action plan to follow up and coordinate with other services to ensure and let obviously our referrers know where we're up to with the referral. I think that's really important. And sometimes if we need a bit more of friendly coercion, whatever you want to call it, you know, then sometimes facts can do that, or other community services, or even sometimes encouraging the family to get involved. And another thing too, I think that we don't do very well, but I think it could help, is actually asking a family why they're declining the service. You won't always get an answer, you might, but some will, and trying to find that out, it might give us more direction in the future as well about how we go about it. Have we got for time? Got 10 minutes? Okay, no worries. Okie dokie. Another one probably that we can have a look at is percentage of those who participated in the Brighter Futures program. And we had a lot of conjecture actually around the definition of what that actually meant, but we eventually got to what we thought it meant. But the story behind the curve for us, we actually, again, you know, I see the graph and I go, oh God, it's gone down, but it's only gone down by a couple of percent, I suppose. But in that quarter, it was the same story. We received a high number of referrals toward the end of the quarter, so then hadn't got through the engagement phase, basically, and into that participation into the programs. We also the number of referrals as well was a high percentage of ROSH versus non-ROSH. We also had in that last quarter, we were processing still on the level of we wouldn't process without a client consent. That's changed. That's changed a little while ago actually. But that had an impact on that data as well, because it was, you know, it's just taking longer for things to happen from the point of when we actually received the referral. So we were chasing up signatures and things like that before we process it. But for a ROSH referral, we no longer need to do that. Okay, so what works? In that quarter, as I said, we found that the commitment to warm referral process, we've got a faster turnaround of that actual engagement, or from the referral receipt to actually meeting and getting the consent and intake done now. There's no hold-ups on that level of getting signatures. We're also finding that accurate, up-to-date information on the referral and accurate contact details is obviously having a big impact in contacting clients and engagement. And putting plans into place as well for our clients so that they can see and track their own degree of improvement in areas that they've identified. And we're very big on putting a lot of effort and time into our support plans and having client involvement in that. And whilst we acknowledge that clients quite often see their highest needs and issues quite differently to probably what they may be or what facts may see them as, but we very much try to work holistically and work with them both very closely together whilst achieving some of those higher child protection issues. Okay, where possible, again, that warm referral process, I love that one, I must admit. Review the client support plan, look for new strategies to engage ROSH families. And again, they could be researched through other services like us in other areas, working more closely with facts. You know, quite often they know obviously these ROSH families are a lot better than what we may, and have worked in that sphere of the work for a lot longer than what we have as well. And another area, again, to use that sort of information, it's quite a different world to try and be working with families with a voluntary service when we're kind of expecting a mandatory outcome, really. So working with ways that we can turn that around a little bit quicker and a little bit better. I'm still working on that. I don't know the answer to that just yet.
Can I just add, so that whole culture behind doing the data analysis, so that's something that we recommend, and I'd say Mission is doing in connection with your team meetings. So we have action-oriented meetings and use the turn the curve analysis process to guide our team meetings. And so what it gives you an opportunity to do is look at to really be transparent about data and no longer see data as something to be feared or manipulated for increased funding or whatever it might be, and really using that data to look at the story because there are so many external factors. The week that we met with the Brighter Futures lead agencies to do the turn the curve analysis, my CEO had met with the minister, and he said, we're really concerned about the disengagement rates of Brighter Futures. So that's once families have engaged with the program, they're officially considered engaged, they're then disengaging from the program. And so he was really concerned about those rates. And when we did that analysis as a group, it was so interesting to see the wide range of reasons behind that. And one of them was that it's a voluntary program, but families are being mandated by FACTS to enter that program. So what they'll do is they'll enter the program to get FACTS off their back, and then when they think that FACTS is safely off their back, but sometimes the Brighter Futures program has engaged, and that's fantastic. But there are times when that family never really intended to, and then they're off. And so that's what I meant by there's so many external factors as well as internal. What I love about it, then you look at, okay, who are our partners that can help us to do better? So it's not sitting in that victim place, but this is why we can't do what we can do. We acknowledge what the challenges are, but then we move on to, okay, what works and what are we going to do about it? And it helps us to partner better and more effectively, and also inform programming to share that information.
Thank you. So I think it's pretty exciting that this type of information, I would typically share just the raw data and how we're going in communities in terms of program numbers and home visiting and this sort of stuff with the staff. We tell a bit of a story about how it's working and what's working or why it's not working. But to be able to go into a bit more depth as a collective team and have a look at things that might be working well in one area and really putting a bit more depth and soul into our work has been very good. Okay, so in summary, the RBA scorecard provides a tool and platform to be able to analyse our service activity in a more meaningful way. Through common language across services and communities, we allow for more accurate representation of our data and our work. It's not just what we do, it's the reasons why that we do it. The measurable impact point allows for further analysis of our service on a daily activity through our identified action plans, through our staff work, through our support into our clients and into our communities as well. So, thank you.
Okay. So also, and I have a little short video as well, but also to conclude, so measuring outcomes, it enables us to know whether our programs are making a difference, analyze the data to improve the quality of our programs, so it's not stagnant. We're always working to do better and to achieve more for our clients, keeping our clients at the heart of what we do, remembering why we do what we do, and yeah, remembering why we do this work.
Bev? Yeah, I've got a question. I'm the Orange Family Support, so we've been doing RBA since, I don't know, I did the training years ago down in Sydney, and then there was a follow-up a few years ago in Orange. And we've got lots and lots of data from RBA, and we've found it really, really useful, because whatever we want to know, we just change the questions to see how we're travelling in connection with what we're providing to our clients. Do you think this type of measure, because we all know that the data we're collecting for FACTS at the moment isn't really giving a picture, a real picture. Do you think this type of thing they might incorporate into the data?
Well, we're having a lot of conversations with FACTS and DPC, and they are they're very serious about outcomes measurement. And that was our recommendation in relation to the Nepean Blue Mountains, is what we found is if we keep the measures broad at a FACTS level, so let's say we want to see a change in circumstance for children and families, but then at a local program level, making it specific. So what is the change of circumstance your program wants to see? Because the feedback we got, so one of the EIPP measures is, have you had an increase in parenting skills? Well, they might be working with the family around, as you know, around domestic violence, around housing, homelessness. There could be a whole range of reasons. Yet by asking them whether they've had an increase in skills in parenting, of course we're there because of the children and we want things better for the children, but it might not be about parenting skills that you're initially working with them on. So it's not really getting to the root, and they're feeling unheard, by answering that question. It's not
we target our questions to what parents want.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll do it for us as well, but we'll also target our questions to what parents come to us for what they've been sent to us for. So we do it from their point of view. As you say, if there's no point in us asking them if they've increased their parenting skills when actually they've come to us for help in dealing with the domestic violence in the family or something like that. You know, although we all know it's connected. But that's what they want to know. They want to know if the DV's better.
And you want to know, that things have improved for them as a result. So I think there's definitely a place for that. And even if it's allowing, similar to the schools, even if every organization has a couple of their own headline measures that are meaningful to them, that they dedicate to doing that trend the curve analysis on. Because the research says if you focus on a data point, it will improve. And you could see that from those slides around the education. Once they were focused on a particular area, let's say it was school attendance or whatever it was, those numbers were phenomenal. So really instead of collecting a whole lot of data, to really collect a couple, even if the reality is going to be that you still have to collect a whole lot of data, really thinking about what are the couple of things in that year, outcomes measures that you really want your service to focus on, and heartily do the trim the curve analysis on those. So I do think there's workarounds, and we've been having some really great conversations with FACS about it. Because it is a conundrum. I do understand where they need to sell to Treasury why to fund these programs, and so it's just how do you collect something meaningfully across hundreds of organizations.
So what's the supporting research for that, the point of view that to focus on a particular joint of data?
I could send it to you. Yeah, absolutely. If you could give me your card, your details.
But I'll give you my email.
Okay.
If I could just pass comment, I've worked, I'm under CAP, and I've worked in Wildwood and Lightning Ridge, and for years, it's Lightning Ridge, you can have evidence-based parenting programs, group programs coming at your ears, like you're smashing targets. Wildwood, you could work 24/7 and get half the amount of program numbers, but it's not telling the story. So, and I know I do my quarterly reports, and my case management hours in Wildwood would be through the roof, but my program numbers and hours for that were right down. Lightning Ridge was nearly the opposite. So, but what facts at the time I wanted to see were program numbers. Right. So it wasn't telling the full story, whereas now it is.
Yeah.
Whereas I live in Lightning Ridge and work in Wildwood, and on a council level, we use RBA with all our programs, and we can actually measure how many kids are attending our centres, what they're getting out of it, how we can improve it through those particular steps, that qualitative and quantitative. But Wildwood is a particular standalone sort of community. They don't get it. You know, it's really hard to measure. You can have all the forms in the world, unless you get, I don't know, we've tried a whole different array of things. Just, I know you have, and us as council have too, but to get people through the door to sign or tick a box is really, really hard to do.
Well, see, I see with this being able to tell that story.
Well, it can. Well, we've used it with all our youth services, and we're leaders in some youth areas, so in the state. So we can demonstrate that. But through what you're saying with programs, there can be some stigmatisation around that, in a sense that DV factors or the stolen generation stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff behind it that I think needs to be taken into consideration. But through the RBA stuff, we use that for all our program delivery and our program analysis, or why we're going to do it. Should we do it? We put RBA out there first with the community, and that's what gives us the power to say, yeah, we're going to do it because they want it.
That's great. Have you come up for that community? Have you come up with somewhat works that work?
We have. We've done a few good guidelines. I actually was at Mark Fielding's training 10 years ago in Sydney, and we actually delivered training at council under RBA. We had a few trainers there at that time, and I've tried to sort of encourage that to go into the infrastructure area. Let's look at why we should change this bridge, or what, why, who wants it, why are we doing it for, what difference is it going to make? Those three core elements. But when it gets down to like the DV and the child removal stuff and that, it's really, really hard. There's a whole lot of background stuff that's really hard to measure.
And local politics too.
Yeah, you've got personality clashes in every small community.
Yeah.
However, it's very standalone community. I mean, I've lived there for 35 years. I know.
Oh, I'd love to hear more. I'd love to have a more in-depth chat about it. So yeah.
All I'm trying to say is that it's hard to work. It will be hard in that what you're saying, Jacinta, but I know it can work for a feel-good thing in a sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For young people being engaged in a sense.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Well,
And sorry if I could just say, sorry, just quickly. And also what Darren said is the data in itself is it's not infallible. You know, data is data, no matter how you capture it and in what way. But it is really the story that it gives you a sense of, and it's that whole something is better than nothing, and it definitely gives you a talking point to start doing this measurement, like changing quality improvement stuff. So thank you.
so